Yes, indeed. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are agreeing to contract extensions with the Cincinnati Bengals that will keep them in the Bengals stripes for the foreseeable future, at least the next 2 to 3 years. We'll get more into that with Richard Skinner right now. Skinny, this is a day that I think a lot of Bengal fans thought would come along, but the fact that it comes all at once with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins agreeing to their deals with the Bengals management. I have to tip my cap to the Bengals management to get this done at this point in time, get it done in conjunction with the other. And I think this is a good sign for the Bengal fans, at least for the short term, that this team is going to be competitive with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Mike, I've said all along on any podcast I've been on, any radio interview I've done, written it, I've never thought the Jamar deal was not going to get done. Now, we could always argue what the timing was going to be, but once the Myles Garrett contract came, all right, okay, the cap started to rise a little bit, the top of the market. All right, now you kind of knew where it was, and now let's work off of that. So I've always thought that one. The T one, I always thought if it went over 30 mil per year average annual value, I thought that would get dicey. I thought anything below $27 million, I'm not sure T's camp would agree to it. It winds up at about 29 mil. So I think they struck good deals for themselves and for the player, and that is a good sign. And for all the hand-wringing that's been done this offseason, I think they did. You can argue, boy, it would have been nice to have this done 2 weeks ago, a month ago. Everybody could have taken a deep breath. But these things, as you know, are really complex, especially when you're talking about how much guaranteed money, where to put the guaranteed money, all of those things into it. And I think they played the offseason, other than signing a guard at this moment, pretty well. I think they've done, we'll talk about it probably a little bit more. I thought they did well by Trey Hendrickson trying to let him go find what his value on the trade market was. So, yeah, a lot of hand-wringing, almost for no good reason in the end.
Yeah, but I do think, and we will get into the Trey Hendrickson part of this deal as well, but the fact that both of these wide receivers get done in conjunction with the other, and I would not be surprised later in the week if a press conference is held. They're both at the same dais holding their press conferences, actually holding one press conference to take care of both wide receivers. That would be appropriate, after all, after Joe Burrow went to bat for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time you had kind of dual signings like this was when they extended Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins, and they had them at the dais at the same time. It was a little odd because Geno hardly ever talked, and that was one of the rare times that Geno did talk. But yeah, I mean, that would probably be the appropriate thing to do. And I'm going to guess whenever that is, that's probably what they'll try to sync up. And maybe, to your point, usually we get these deals and it's usually a day later, maybe two at most, you get the press conference. I sure hope it is before March Madness starts, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, at some point, I think you'll see them both together, whatever day that is this week.
All right, the numbers as we have them, as they've been reported in by numerous outlets. Jamar Chase, 4 years, $161 million with $112 million guaranteed. T. Higgins, 4 years, $115 million with the first 2 years of that contract guaranteed. We don't have the total guaranteed cash value of the T. Higgins contract yet. That certainly I would think would be coming in due course. But the fact that Jamar Chase is now the highest paid non-quarterback in the National Football League. That's something, Skinny. We were there in Indianapolis. Duke Tobin said we're there with regard to accepting that as a fait accompli with Jamar Chase. And the Bengals kept their word on that after, as you said, Myles Garrett deal went down. The Bengals went that extra step further and made Jamar Chase a very happy man. T. Higgins, the $29 million average annual value, right in that sweet spot, like you said, between, I think, anything less than 27, and I don't think that would have been fair market value for T, but they weren't going above 30. I guess what my next question to you is, with the guaranteed numbers as we have them, certainly the Bengals aren't doing this if this doesn't help their cap space this year going forward, trying to roster build. If you will, for the audience, Skinny, why is that such a big deal? The Bengals are actually saving themselves some cap space in the way they've structured these two contracts, or it's reported that they've structured these two contracts going forward. Maybe these two deals had to be in place for the Bengals to go out and get that guard. Maybe these two deals had to be in place to go out and get another edge rusher, or get the deal done with Trey Hendrickson.
That's a great point, Mike. I'm writing a column kind of along those lines later today. I'd love to know what the number. I have not seen the numbers. I know you haven't either. Usually over the cap or spot rack is pretty good about that. Again, let's keep in mind these deals have not been signed yet, so that's probably why we don't know the exact details to where the money is spread out, where the guarantees hit, what the amount is. But yes, the cap hit for this year for both those players will probably go down. Jamar was 21.8. T was just over 26 mil on the franchise tag. The latest that I think I saw from over the cap was the Bengals had $28 million in cap space available. I don't think that included one of the contracts they signed last week. I don't think that's in the mix. And I can't remember which one that was, if that was Slayton's contract or BJ Hill's contract was not factored in. The other part too is, and I tell people this, a lot of people don't want to hear it, you do got to subtract about $10 to $15 million for the Bengals that they hold back for draft picks, which they got to sign draft picks for practice squad, for potential injuries, for incentives. So anytime you see that number, if it's 28 right now, I would probably put it in my mind at 15 mil. And so to your point, yes, then if you got these deals in place to free up some cap space, would allow you to maybe get back to a ballpark figure for Trey Hendrickson on an extension. You have to still sign a guard. I mean, that to me is the biggest must have at the moment is signing that guard. Maybe you did need to do that to go sign a guard. I think whatever happens at linebacker will be kind of tit for tat. Jermaine Pratt gets cut. He's about $6 million on the cap. You sign somebody for $6 million-ish, somewhere around that figure. Yes, I know Oren Burks is coming in, but he's coming in really as a third linebacker. So there's probably a move got to be made there. And maybe there's money left over to help the safety room too. So yeah, I think these were big, not only to shore these guys up, but to also help you in the short term too.
What about the happiness factor? Do you think everybody in that organization is a little happier today, given the fact that the Bengals put their money where their mouth is, and that has not always been the case?
No, right.
I mean, I think that's well documented over the last 3 to 4 decades. But the Bengals stepped forward in this regard. They got the deal done with their 2 stars. The first person I thought of when I, woke up at about 4 a.m. when my phone blowing up, and a little late to the party there, a couple hours. But when I woke up at 4 a.m., first person I thought of was Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one that lobbied for this. I mean, he's the one that openly that night in Dallas. I mean, we all kind of looked at each other when he kind of spoke this into existence. And he went to bat for T. Higgins. Again, more so T than Jamar. I mean, like I said, I think everybody knew all along they were going to pay Jamar. I think T was the guy. Are you going to pay him or not pay him? Then there was the hand wring because they slapped the franchise tag on him, and he doesn't want that.
To me, that was business, Skinny.
Correct.
I mean,
no, I'm with you. It was just procedural, but everybody lost their mind of, look what the Bengals are doing to this guy again. And if you're him, you're like, man, why are you doing this? Well, again, that was to give you some more time to talk extension. They obviously only went really less than 2 weeks from the time they put the tag on him to the time that they got the extension done. So it wasn't all that bad. And I think he does this. I know it's not his side of the ball, but Al Golden at the Combine talked about, and he was really, I thought, quite blunt about this, of how important he thinks OTAs and the offseason program is for his side of the ball to ramp things up so they can hit the ground running when the season starts, to maybe avoid slow starts. Zach Taylor's talked about that a lot, about trying to find ways to avoid slow starts. Well, you know what could have led to helping you with or leading to a slow start is seeing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in a ball cap standing on the sideline in July and August. That would have been a bad thing. That would have been bad karma. That would have been bad everything. Now it's, again, I don't know if these guys show up for OTAs still or not. I mean, I'm going to guess they're happy campers and will. They don't have to. They're not mandatory. But I think that they will, even if it's just to go through
I think they'll be there. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think right now, the way the team is thinking, there's no reason for these players to be exerting themselves in OTAs.
Right. Right.
And it's important to keep that in mind. They are there essentially at this point to help the younger players, to be a resource for the younger players, much in the same way Jamar was in the OT. Jamar Chase got some criticism for not being ready to go last year, in part because I think mentally he was in a mindset where he wasn't all bought in because of what was going on with his contract.
Yeah, he wasn't.
However, in the OTAs and the minicamp, he was present. He was in the meetings.
Yeah,
and he was taking part. And Zach Taylor, to his credit, and he's in part has to say this, but I think he meant it. Jamar Chase didn't have to be there necessarily, but he was a participant with the team in those meetings. Now we don't have to worry, like you said, we don't have to worry about those questions.
And I think that factored into it. I mean, they didn't know that that Jamar was going to play till 90 minutes prior to kickoff on opening day, for goodness sake. So all that distraction stuff, whether you want to think it's a distraction or not, whether it really and truly is, well, that's off the table now. Okay, that part's gone. So I do think that's important that everybody now, not everybody, because there's probably a couple guys like a Trey Hendrickson, but these two guys especially, and the quarterback are all happy campers. And he got, on top of it, he spoke Mike Gesicki into existence. Like, hey, we need to sign Mike G too. Well, they did.
Speaking with Richard Skinner, Skinny of Local 12 here in Cincinnati. Want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, and even esports, and much, much more. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Second half of the basketball season is here in full swing, obviously, and the race to the playoffs is heating up fast on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Will Luka Doncic go for more than 25 points? Jason Tatum go for more than 8 rebounds this week? I think so. That's where my smart money is going to be this week on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back with Richard Skinner of Local 12 here in Cincinnati. All right, I want to ask you a little bit, Skinny, about Trey Hendrickson and how the dynamic might change with regard to his contract status and whether or not you think the momentum from the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins deal maybe carries over into his potential extension.
Yeah, no, so here's the thing that I think you also have to give some credit for, right? They Duke Tobin at the Combine, to your point, said we're going to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. They did that. Trey Hendrickson back in Super Bowl week said, I want an extension with the Bengals. I want them to trade me. Well, they haven't worked out an extension. What did the Bengals allow him to do? Go test the trade market. See what you can get financially, but we also want our compensation back. And it doesn't sound like they were able to come through on that. I mean, there was a report last week that Trey's agent said that he thought he could fetch a first-round pick for Trey. That's what the Bengals are seeking. Don't blame them for that. I know some people are going, why don't you just let him go? No, I'm not going to just let him go. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, of course they're not going to do that. And I think, again, the Bengals get criticized, and justifiably so, for playing it way too tight with the purse strings over the years. But in this particular case, they took a cue from what the LA Rams did with Matthew Stafford. That's absolutely exactly what they did. That is not only their prerogative as purveyors of the franchise and looking out for what's best in the best interest of the franchise going forward. That's the way to best judge the market.
So here's, I think, where we're at with this. He obviously is going to come back to the Bengals, to the bargaining table, right? And the Bengals are going to talk. The question then is, how many years would you look to extend him? How many years would he look to be extended? I think fair market value for Trey Hendrickson is in the low 30s. I can argue that it should be what Max Crosby's making because he's had a more productive, last 4 or 5 years than Max Crosby has had. I mean, statistically, you can look it up.
Certainly the last 2.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No question. And but again, I don't think the Bengals are in that 35, nor should they be. I mean, we're talking about then you're paying money down the road to a guy you don't know where things are going to go into his 30s. You just don't. Then the other thing for me is this: does you just say, all right, let's sweeten the pot, we'll extend you for 1 more year? Well, that backfired on Trey the last time he did it. That's why he's in the pickle he's in, from a contract spot at the moment. I do think they can get something done. I can't imagine it goes above 30 mil, and I can't imagine it would go for more than 2 years on top of this year.
Correct.
Talking about the 2026, 2027.
I have a number, and I'm going to throw it out at you.
All right. The other possibility is if Trey doesn't like those numbers being thrown and says, I want to test free agency after this year, fine. You're under contract with us this year. Play under this contract. And for those, he'll sit out. No, he's not. Do you know what he's going to have to do if he goes to free agency? He's going to have to perform at a high level again, especially now that he's into his 30s. He can't suddenly go, I got an owie here. I'm going to sit these games. I'll play a couple games. No, you're not going to get paid, and he knows that. So as goofy as it sounds, the Bengals letting him test the market was the best thing they could do because now the power's back and the leverage is back in their court with this because they did him a solid. They said, go find a team. Okay, we want fair value back. We're not getting fair value back in picks. So we're not going to trade. I think they played this perfectly. I wrote a column about that last week and got a lot of crap for it. I think they played this perfectly. I think they played it fairly and perfectly.
And they never were in danger of losing an asset that if they felt they were not in good spot with free agency, and they haven't added anybody in free agency, only their own, Cam Sample and Joseph Asai, then just hold on to them. That's your base bargaining position.
Yeah, and then fix it next offseason if you have to. If he goes to free agency next year, take that market. Because really, the edge rusher market is down to meh guys. So you just go, he's all right. He's okay. I mean, there's no Trey Hendrickson. I don't even know there wasn't ever really a Trey Hendrickson on the market, but there were starting caliber, double-digit sack guys on the marketplace. They're all gone. And so at this point, I'm not going to trade Trey Hendrickson, nothing in return, then go get a mediocre free agent. Give me a break.
If you're the Bengals, there's I think they're certainly going to extend an offer that has the parameters something like 2 years, $30 million a year with maybe a third-year option. And I don't know what their cash availability is left to guarantee.
Backload some of it too.
Backload some of it, but as long as Trey knows he's getting, let's say, $50 million guaranteed, I think I'd take that in a heartbeat. And I think the Bengals, if they look at the market and what the going rate is going to be for a premier edge rusher, which they have on their roster now, that's what it would be. Well, again, the Bengals are demonstrating through and why the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins deals matter. And if you want to go back to Joe Burrow, I think that's a different case. But all three of those players, Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, demonstrate that the Bengals are willing to pay top dollar for elite players that are currently in their system. And that matters to them.
Yeah, listen, every 30-year-old is not the same. Trey Hendrickson could have 8 years left in his tank for all I know. But I also know that there's a lot of players that you never looked at and go, he's never going to fall off the cliff. A.J. Green, he's never going to fall off the cliff at age 30. Well, he got hurt, and then he fell off the cliff. Sam Hubbard, man, that guy's going to play until he's 35. Look what great. Sam Hubbard retired because of injuries and where he was at contractually. So I know he's been grossly underpaid. Has he? I mean, the Bengals took a flyer on him coming out of New Orleans and paid him a pretty good piece of change as a free agent on a guy that had 1 year of production. It's panned out beautifully for both. They extended him. Listen, if he didn't like the extension 2 years ago, don't sign it then, my guy.
I would make the argument with you, Skinny. I don't know if I've told you this before. I think Trey Hendrickson's their best free agent signing ever.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, no, I would probably concur. I'd have to take a long, hard look.
I mean, right.
I mean, but you're talking about a guy who's back-to-back years. He set the franchise sack record, and then he tied the franchise sack record that he that he set. And, he had, 2 years of productivity before that. No question. I'm with you on that. But I think that they played their hand perfectly here. They allowed him to do what he wanted of either extend me or trade me. Well, test the market. There wasn't a lot of takers out there. There was a couple at the price he was looking for. But again, we want fair market value in return from a draft trade. Didn't get it. So sorry, my man. This is where we're at. So now come back to the bargaining table. Let's talk again. And again, if it doesn't get to a point where they feel it's fair, he feels it's fair, okay, play this year under the contract that is, and we'll let you walk to free agency. Or maybe put the franchise tag on. I don't think
I would love to know what kind of budget the Bengals have after doing the deal with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and I don't know.
And we don't know. We'll never know. And I understand that. We won't really have a good idea until and if the Bengals go ahead and extend Trey Hendrickson. I just think The Bengals know at this point, all of the focus has been on the offense. They do have to start adding. TJ Slayton is not insignificant. I think that was a good piece. 2 years, only two. We can get to that in a little bit. But they have to make sure that Trey Hendrickson is in a Bengal uniform next year, barring somebody, which they haven't to this point, blowing their doors off for a trade for Hendrickson.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you spend a draft pick at that position high enough to put him in the realm of eventually maybe being a guy you don't know until you see him. I mean,
right.
Myles Murphy was a first-round pick, and at this point it's been a disappointing 2 seasons. Maybe the light bulb goes off. But I think you do that, and you see, okay, maybe next year's free agency class, if Trey walks, we'll go tit for tat there. We lose Trey, but we'll re-sign somebody. I think all those things are where we're at with this. And I think the Bengals have put the leverage back in their corner, to be honest with you.
Richard Skinny of local12.com here in Cincinnati. Want to tell you about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluffs to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, and we all know how tedious that can be. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and much, much more. And they have a feature called All-In Pricing. What is that, you ask? Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And we all know we hate surprise fees when we're buying seats. Seat views also included. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CHATSPORTS, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem with the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Skinny. Back here talking Bengals free agency, what they've been able to do with the reported terms being agreed to with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Certainly a historic day in Cincinnati Bengals history. A lot of fans are excited. They should be. It's a big moment for Joe Burrow. We've touched a little bit on Trey Hendrickson. I want to get a little bit deeper into the weeds now. If they're able to keep Trey Hendrickson, that is great, because I think they brought in one of the best pure nose tackles in the game in TJ Slayton, a big man, 6'4", 331 pounds. Kind of a Richard Skinner type guy, if you ask me. Yeah,
there's no question. Brinks truck is what he's a Brinks truck.
He is a Brinks truck. He's just looking for that truck outside with all the money in it, as he was saying last week during the press conference at Paycor Stadium. But going out and getting a guy like TJ Slayton, the fact that it's only a 2-year deal, Skinny, is it just not 1 year, but a 2-year prove-it deal with the Bengals?
Yeah, again, if it doesn't work out, you get out from under it, you're good to go. I mean, maybe McKinley Jackson blossoms in a rotational spot, and you go, okay, McKinley's our guy on a rookie contract. You're 4 deep now at defensive tackle. You're Chris Jenkins and BJ Hill can be rotational guys with each other, maybe occasionally play side by side in pass rush situations. Now you got 2 pure nose tackles on the roster and a proven guy in Slayton, who played in Green Bay for 4 years, and McKinley Jackson. And then again, I go back to the draft. I mean, it's such a deep class for tackles and edges. I can't imagine that before day 2 is out, which is through the first 3 rounds, that they don't have both a defensive tackle and a defensive end drafted. And so now then you've got 5 men deep at the tackle position, and you are arguably sort out your end spots. You got Trey, and then you got Murphy, Osai, and whoever this draft pick is. And are you significantly better? I don't know about significantly, because again, Osai was okay down the stretch. Murphy hasn't proven it yet. The draft pick you would have wouldn't have proven it yet. But I do think you're better.
I was at the Joseph Osai press conference on Friday at Paycor, Skinny, and one thing that stood out to me is I think he is maturing in terms of how to prepare his body in the offseason. He said Trey Hendrickson had a lot to do with that in terms of giving him some advice, staying in his ear, making sure he was doing the right things in the offseason program, eating the right way, working out the right way. And, every athlete should probably be that way, but sometimes you need a guy like Trey Hendrickson around to kind of put a bug in your ear and really drive that point home. But with Joseph Osai, what he needs to do on the field, and I don't know how capable he is of doing this, he needs to win in hand-to-hand combat more. He needs to be able to get off his blocker and get to the quarterback. There is no doubting his athleticism, and that's what and his motor. He can run sideline to sideline. What were you going to say, Skinny?
Yeah, as I say, I mean, he's had a wrist issue before. I just wonder if that started to get better and he started to feel better and feel more confident in it, because he did play pretty well down the stretch last year. It was almost like a light bulb went off for him. Like, this is it. I'm getting to free agency. I got to do something. And he didn't do probably enough to then go hit the market and cash in. So perfect 1-year re-signing of a guy that you think, okay, he started to tap into that potential. It's a win for us because we get him back with maybe that upside. It's a win for him because it's decent money, and he can come back here and maybe actually become a starter or certainly an every third down pass rush guy.
What's more historic, the Bengals doing the deals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase basically simultaneously, or actually getting a deal done with T. Higgins' former agent, Jesse Bates's former agent, David Mulligetta? Which is more historic in your eyes?
I didn't even think about that part because, let's not forget that T. Higgins dropped David Mulligetta too, because I don't think the two sides could ever come to a meeting of the minds last offseason. And I'll go the T. Jamar signings because of the finances of it and the jointness of it, but you're not too far off in your analogy.
I just think it shows that the Bengals were pretty serious this year in this offseason in realizing what they had to get done. Yeah, and I know Paul Dehner Jr. wrote this for The Athletic, but some of these deals felt more like the Bengals have to get these done, not they want to get these done.
Yeah, and again, I know everybody wants them done 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, so it eases the mind of everybody. But I mean, these are so complex, especially when you're talking about guarantees, that it just doesn't come together that easy. I mean, I guarantee you these sides were going to. I think the positive part to this is you were negotiating with one agent for both guys.
Yes, no question.
I think that question was asked at the combine, and I think Duke Toby even said, he goes, these guys work on multiple deals at the same time. They have more than just two guys, right? But it just felt like they weren't playing off each other. It was almost like they were playing together here. Like, okay, if we get to this number here, can we get to this number there? Okay, now let's talk some guarantees. All right, we know we're going to have a bunch of Jamar guaranteed money. Hey, the Jamar guaranteed money isn't shocking because that had to take place, right? I mean, the fact that they gave T 2 years of guaranteed money is significant because they just don't do that. Listen, even as minuscule as the Von Bell contract when he left for Carolina was, it was all over guaranteed money in the second year. Carolina was willing to give it. Bengals weren't. He walked. And then, it didn't work out for Von coming back, but Carolina basically paid the bill for Von Bell last year. He's making $6 million of guaranteed money from them.
Absolutely. I want to get to a few more points along the defense and where the Bengals could improve perhaps in terms of the linebacking core. We've spent a lot of time on the defensive front, and I think, certainly they're going now to address that, I think, in the draft. I think they're confident and satisfied that they can fulfill most of what they need in the draft. The linebacker position, to me, is kind of curious. Where they go, do they find somebody in the draft? Is there somebody at a second-tier level free agent that could step in and fill the void besides Oren Burks? How do you think that stands?
Yeah, I thought they would strike a little quicker at the linebacker spot. I'm still shocked at the moment Jermaine Pratt's still on the roster. I'm not sure why that is, unless they're trying to kick every opportunity to trade him and see if they can get anything back in value, because, of course, he demanded a trade. I can't see a scenario where they believe Jermaine Pratt is going to be the starter next to Logan Wilson. Maybe they think Oren Burks can come in and push a rookie. Maybe that's where they're going with this too, is looking and going, let's get a rookie, let's get some young blood in here. Logan Wilson didn't start a bunch of games as a rookie, but he played a lot as a rookie. Jermaine Pratt started halfway through his rookie year, so rookies can come in and start. Now, maybe you can't start in an Al Golden system, I don't know, but maybe that's their thought process of we're going to address linebacker early in this draft, and that's going to be our starter, and our fallback plan is Oren Burks. Or to your point, maybe it is a mid-level free agent. That's the thing. We have to figure out where do the finances all shuffle out after this, because there's no question guard has to be a priority at the moment. You have to go get one of the guys that's left on the marketplace. It's basically Tevin Jenkins and and Brandon Scherf. And you have to land a starting guard. You just have to. And so then do you look and go, all right, we got enough money left to go get a mid-tier linebacker. Again, it's probably tit for tat. Jermaine gets cut, save $6 million, sign a guy for $5-6 million, even money there. And I still think, Mike, I'm not so sure they don't have to address the safety room either.
Yeah, I was going to move there, so you've done that. Let's go there. What about the safety room? Jordan Battle and Geno Stone, and obviously Von Bell's not in the picture. Where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to bring another veteran in and then probably go to the draft. I mean, Tyson Anderson's still on the roster, but he's more of a
Dejon Anthony.
Dejon Anthony's on the roster, and maybe Al Golden sees some things he likes in him too. Dejon was impressive in camp, and then the penalty against Kansas City kind of cut his playing time down to size, and really didn't play much more after that. But I do think that, and honestly, going back to Al Golden at the Combine, he spoke in nice terms about Jordan Battle. He spoke in terms of Geno Stone, he's a veteran. I think he said of both of those guys, it's a starting point. And when you hear that, it's like, okay, you feel like they can help you in some way, but you're not overly confident in those. At least Geno probably is a starting caliber guy. So I'd be shocked if they don't address that room before free agency is over with.
I'm going to use a quote that Terry Francona used in Arizona about Noelve Marte. He's got a lot to prove. I feel that way about Al Golden and a lot of those guys on the Bengals defense, in that they have a lot to prove to a new set of eyes. To me, Skinny, the number one thing the Bengals absolutely have to do better, and it's non-negotiable, is pursue and tackle. When they were what they were in 21 and 22, they were very good in pursuing and very, very good in wrapping up and tackling. That's one reason Mike Hilton, to me, if he's still out there, he's always a possibility of coming back.
Here's the thing with Mike, too, and I do wonder this. I mean, at the age he's at, and you got a bunch of corners, there's been some thought. In fact, Al brought it up at the Combine. I think I asked him directly about, could Dak still factor into being a slot corner? And they talked about, we have some guys we've identified. I mean, could Mike come back and be a safety?
I don't know, because I'm not going to sit back here and pretend to be Jordan Kovacs or Charles Burks. I wish I knew the answer in terms of how Hilton. I know Hilton has the brain to do it.
Oh, for sure.
No question about that.
To do it.
But does he have the athleticism to be able to do that?
Well, I guess the question is, I mean, if you're athletic enough to play slot corner, I would hope you're athletic enough to play safety.
You would, but in this day and age, you've got to be able to cover, even if you're a safety. And is he big enough to be a downhill safety? Probably not.
It's a legit question, but man, there ain't many more sure tacklers on this team than that guy.
No, there are not. It has been a historic podcast, recovering a historic subject, Skinny. This is one of the bigger days in Bengal history. Would you not agree?
I would. I mean, I'm not surprised Jamar got done. The fact that T got done alongside him was surprising when that news first started leaking out on Friday. I thought, wow, they're going to really do these two guys together, and lo and behold, they haven't put ink to paper yet, but obviously agreed upon.
And we need to address this real quick and allow you to do this. For everybody online, and there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them, saying, great, the Bengals have an offense. They're not going to be able to stop anybody, and they're going to have to win 57-55 every game. I don't buy that. I think they're going to be better defensively. I don't think they can play much worse than they did last year.
I agree with that part of it. I do think this, though. I mean, they haven't added a difference maker, right? And so to me, it feels like they have put all their eggs in this was Lou Anarumo's fault basket. And Al Golden's going to be able to scheme out of that. And maybe he is. We're going to find that out. I don't think they've taken steps backwards personnel-wise. I just don't know if they've added anything personnel-wise that makes you think anything otherwise. I mean, it feels like they really believe that Al Golden will be the difference. We'll see.